Okay, so guys, yeah, actually, maybe you guys might want to see the water here. I'll swap you. You guys can watch what I see, and we'll continue to read about Quavo. Previous. That's nice. Okay. So we were just talking about what Ice Cube did. So he says, in addition to the work he plans to do in front of the camera, Quavo wants to expand his efforts behind it, namely as a director of music videos. He directed the one for Migos' 2018 song Narcos, and is credited on several other Migos videos, but says he often feels overshadowed by the producers and directors the group works with, including his friend, the director Daps, whose credits well, that's not that smart. Okay, let's try to. First of all, let's tighten this. Let's tighten that. I think that's a little bit better. Let's hope it is. So Daps, whose credits include the videos for Bad and Bougie, T-shirt, and Slippery. Quavo says, Daps is my nigga, so I can say this shit, but I'm tired of him taking my shine. I feel like he was taking me off a little bit. He emphasizes that he still plans to work with Daps, but wants to demonstrate what he can do as a director. I would love to do a video for other people if y'all want my vision. Quavo offers that he'd particularly like to collaborate with Chloe and Halle, the R&B singer duo signed to Beyonce's Parkland Entertainment, for example. So hearing Quavo talk about ratcheting up his ambitions as a director and as an actor naturally brings to mind the questions that dogged him earlier this summer. Like, how does Migos fit into the culture that Quavo's building? Well, the way Quavo sees it, all these new pursuits don't really threaten Migos. Rather, they help to solidify the group. He tells me that it's important at this stage in their career for each of them to establish themselves as individuals to maximize their impact independently. It was about Migos, the three of us, he says, describing the first decade of the trio's run. I felt like every group member has to establish themselves, their own body of work, and if not, you start losing members. Quavo borrows a football metaphor to describe how, after years of drawing up the plays for the team, he's trying to get more comfortable calling his own number. I'm a quarterback in life, he says, but now I want it. I'm just going to show you. At a moment when he's contemplating the long arc of his career he's designing, Quavo admits that he's grown more attentive to the image that he cultivates in the culture, more sensitive to the impression people have of him. He is, for example, still frustrated with how his last romantic relationship ended with fellow rapper Sweetie. Last year, a video surfaced from 2020 that showed a physical argument in an elevator. I heard about that too, and I actually painted a really bad picture. I thought he wasn't a good guy. The footage is difficult to watch. Sweetie throws something at Quavo's head and misses. He pulls her into the elevator with him, and after they both struggle over an orange suitcase, she stumbles to the ground, and he doesn't help her up. On social media, Quavo was dragged for his behavior when the video appeared. When I asked him about the incident now, he stares down at the floor. If I can ever speak on it, I never once in a million years want to do any harm to any woman, period, he says. He hasn't said much about the breakup, and that incident is clearly something that weighs on him. He circles back to it later in our conversation, unprompted. I don't like what people think, he says. When they saw the elevator thing, they thought it was abusive, something crazy. That's true, I thought it was abusive. He offers that he's not in a hurry to find a partner, that he'd like to focus on the work he's doing on himself. I want to establish myself as a human being before I step into any more relationships, or anything that could steer me off, he says. His mother, however, maintains a persistent interest in his love life. At one point, she tells me enthusiastically and unsolicited, "I try to tell the girls he dates, y'all just leave him alone if you want him to like you. Don't have sex with him, because if you do, he's just going to go home." She chuckles. I try to tell them that, but they won't listen. When I relayed to Quavo that his mother had told me what his mother told me, his expression is a mixture of irritation and horror. "What did she say that for?" he asked. My God. If the vast majority of Quavo's time these days is spent looking downfield to what's next, it's worth noting that he finds chances to glance backward, particularly if there's a misstep he might be able to correct. Indeed, the fact that he can be so cognizant of the past provides some insight into how he conceives of his future. For years, Quavo had been quietly frustrated with himself for dropping out of high school. Life, of course, worked out just fine for him, but the memory of quitting nagged at him. I was upset with myself for not passing my classes and giving myself a chance. I just feel like I didn't put 100% in it. That's true. Recently, I drove over to Burkar High School to see the place that loomed in Quavo's mind as a setting for a rare failure. The school sits in a busy stretch of exurban Atlanta, and there's a shopping plaza across the street with a Clinica Medica and Supermercado Mi Puebla inside. Inside, I found Principal Durant Williams, who was a guidance counselor when Quavo was a student. In those days, he told me, the school was majority black. Today, about 70% of the student population is Hispanic. As we talked, a group of Hispanic students strolled casually down the long hallway, wearing crop tops and shorts. A trio of slight black boys, clasped by in distressed jeans and black hoodies, their Migos-esque locks falling just above their jawlines. I wonder what it must have been like when Quavo took off and Offset roamed the halls here. Given who he is now, a world-famous rapper with innate, unmistakable charisma, it's easy to think that Quavo must have been an exceptional kid. But to Williams, many of the school's 3,000 students were just like him, gifted young people of color navigating an overburdened school system that can often seem inflexible to their needs. Quavo was smart, talented, and popular, and he still dropped out. Williams is no stranger to students becoming disillusioned and giving up on school. Life is tricky. The hurdles to success are real, and the path is seldom clear. Which is why he was so grateful that Quavo, in the months ahead of the pandemic, had been quietly chipping away at his coursework required to finish his final semester and at last graduate. Williams told me that it's rare that a former student, especially one as successful as Quavo, returns, and so the principal paid careful attention to helping the rap star navigate the process. After completing his courses, Quavo was invited to participate in the graduation ceremony, a virtual event on account of the pandemic. All the school needed was a graduation photo, and Williams mailed a cap and gown to California, where Quavo was staying at the time, and included instructions about how the portrait needed to look in order to be included with the others from the graduated class. Of course, this picture couldn't be as glitzy as the photos the Grammy nominee typically takes. It needed to meet a certain standard, and it needed to be simple, and it had to be taken against a solid black backdrop. Williams also gave Quavo an early deadline for the photo, just to be sure the rapper hit the mark. Ahead of the ceremony, Williams received the photo, nearly a decade in the making. In the picture, a smiling Quavo wears a deep blue cap and gown, with a white shirt underneath, 4 diamond chains draped neatly over the gown, and as do his chest-length locks. His hair is longer than it once was. His beard is fuller, his chains are much bigger and icier, but fundamentally, he's still the same kid that Williams remembers commanding the halls with his friends and family members, known back then as the Migos. When Quavo proudly posted his cap and gown photo on Instagram, he noted in the caption that he was at long last a graduate of Berkmar High School, his unfinished business finished. "We lit," he wrote before turning his attention to the future. "Now, what college should I go to?" Cool.